Hello my friends and welcome as always to a very special episode of Ups and Downs. I have just watched Clash in Paris, but I didn't go to the show because instead I was in the United Kingdom working a wrestling show called GWK and I actually got to take on Grado. Don't want to be that guy, but Grado has been on my wrestling bucket list for a while. It was absolute joy and it filled my heart with glee. Which sounds ridiculous, but it is true. What a worker that guy is. It's me being facetious. He's absolutely brilliant. And then I came back to my big old box and I did watch Hitting in France. That didn't work at all, I am an idiot, but I do have a finger of power. So it's time to give you the good bits are up and the bad bits are down. That didn't make any sense. Maybe I bashed my head. Now, one of my favorite parts about this pay-per-view is that we did start off with Roman Reigns versus Bronson Reed, and we actually had a show-long angle that tied into the show. Once again, this is a terrible start. I'm going to throw two ups in there right away because, man, WWE actually had an interesting set with a big old Eiffel Tower wannabe lookalike. It doesn't feel like they've done this in ages. Also, the crowd was just absolutely brilliant. Like everyone always says, oh my gosh, Lyon, France is the best. But we headed up to Paris, the capital, and that was amazing too. So it's an up for a set, given we are moving to ESPN. Let's do more of that. And in terms of the atmosphere that you human beings created, you get a salute from a bald asshole. It was then Roman Reigns versus Bronson Reed, and like I say, the end of this was going to tie into the main event, which I thought was super duper interesting, especially because, as it turns out, we have a new member of the Vision. And I actually predicted this a few weeks ago, but I said it as a joke. So I can't come on here and be like, oh my gosh, I'm a wrestling nerd, and I know everything. Sometimes I just say stupid things and they come true. Otherwise though, this was your stereotypical WWE Roman Reigns match, but I got such a kick out of it because one, the whole tribal thief thing is hilarious and Bronson Reed has really used it to elevate his game, but also we saw Bronson Reed like a massive threat here, and anytime he went for the tsunami, everybody stopped like they were Tyrannosaurus Rex. They were like, do not hit Roman with that thing. And Roman knew this as well, but at one point, he Superman punched Bronson Reed right in the face to stop this happening. And at the start of the match, it turns out Roman Reigns has never played WWF No Mercy on the Nintendo 64 because he tried to Samoan drop Bronson Reed. That's totally cool because Roman is Samoan, but his back gave out. You gotta work the meters, pal. Come on. Bless this Bronson as well, because at one point Roman was going to spear him and he just stopped him because he was big. It's like sometimes the simple stuff does work, and he tied it into the power bomb. But of course he only got the 1-2. I'm not going to give it a down, but if I was going to find a criticism to this, it was the fact that I never believed Bronson Reed was going to win. That's probably due to the star power of Roman, but maybe it's something we need to look at as we go forward. The finish tied into the tsunami as well, because this is when Roman was like, I don't want to be killed by this guy, when finally he did get the Samoan drop, which just goes to show you should believe in your dreams. When he speared Bronson, and he got the 1-2-3. Now, given what happened later, I'm actually not going to get annoyed about the fact he only gave him one spear, especially because the aftermath of this, I do believe Roman Reigns is about to go and do some street fighting. Now, first Roman made sure to get revenge against Paul Heyman. And Heyman was so good because he gave him his shoes back, like, please don't kill me. But actually, he did quite literally kill him. He choked Paul Heyman out to the point Paul had to go to a local medical facility. So I think that has to be a crime. Paul Heyman wasn't in the match, and he ended up in the hospital for one on the crime counter. Bronson Reed was going to do something with him as well, but Roman Reigns kind of stopped him, which is when, of course, Bron Breakker turned up, and we have to be doing this match at WrestleMania or sometime soon, because he just speared the absolute shit out of Roman, and he made him go through out of the announce table when Bronson Reed was like, I'm going to tsunami him. Everybody freaked out, like, please don't do that, his poor ribs. But Breakker just speared him again. Now eventually Jey Uso did make the save, and actually I love the fact he took so long, because the big conversation that Roman had with his cousin was, man, you need to start looking out for yourself. But by this point, Roman Reigns was essentially deceased, and he got stretched out of there because the Vision had done such a devastating job on him. Now, as I've just hinted at, it's probably because he is going to go away to film a movie, but if you were going to have Bronson Reed lose, what a great way to ensure that Reed and Bron Breakker got their heat back instantly, because right after this too, Adam Pearce was like, you can't do that on my show, even though everybody does that on my show. You are banned from the building, and if you sneak back in, you will be suspended without pay. I was like, I think you should probably threaten to send them to jail, but I guess no cash is good. Also to point out as well that Jey Uso got beaten up here too with that spear, so it meant he had bad ribs going into the main event. So all of this gets a massive round of applause. I think it did a great job in getting the losers over and made you go, well, what the hell is going to happen in that world title match? I don't think anybody predicted what did happen apart from me, but as I've said, that was a joke. I am going to give it an up. A huge reason for this was just because the fans love Roman Reigns. I think they thought he was their dad, and maybe he was. I haven't done any paternity tests. Up. When the SmackDown Tag Team titles on the line and it was the Street Profits versus the Wyatts, two things here as I continue on my two game. One, I do believe the Street Profits were in Borderlands gear, which is pretty cool, especially because in my own wrestling career, I just got Gears of War gear made, and that made me feel warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum. And also, there was a point where it felt like there was a little bit of a falling out between Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford. Does that tie into what Bo Dallas said on Friday? And are we going to break the Street Profits up? Now, actually, this is the direct opposite to how I usually feel about WWE doing this. If you do want to send them on their own separate ways, it's probably time. I think they've been together since 1772. Now, Dawkins was a little bit annoyed by this, but he still got the hot tag and went absolutely nuts. And this senton bomb he did was ridiculous when he was mucking around with Barry Barricade. Now, this made me laugh out loud because he just looked at Eric Rowan. And he got distracted because no wrestler could handle another wrestler being on the outside of the ring. So he essentially got launched into the audience when Nikki Cross turned up as well. And she started grabbing people's foot. You got to put one on the dick board, the distraction, interference, and confusion counter. I kind of feel like we should keep it away from PLEs, given how much we do it on TV. But what are you going to do? I should also point out there was one point where Joe Gacy and Dexter Lumis were going to use each other as a weapon. And everybody just fell down. I don't even see why we need to talk about it at all. Mistakes happen in pro wrestling. They're just human beings. And all things considered, I thought they brushed it up pretty well. Uncle Howdy also used the fact that Nikki had done this and he hit their sister Abigail when Gacy and Loomis hit that net breaker powerbomb combo and they just beat the Street Profits. Now, it kind of feels like to me, Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford would be like, well, that was your fault. And the other would go, that was your fault. And maybe you even build to a match at the Royal Rumble, or you can just send them off in their own directions and they never talk again. Or you can keep them as a group and they just get into singles actions. But either way, this is the most interesting the Wyatt's been in ages, and the match was fine. It was okay. It's something to write home about. I don't think we'll ever talk about it again, but I wasn't offended, and it did make me go, what's that Bo gonna do next? I find it absolutely crazy. We took months to do this, but better late than never, but better never late. Is that correct? I don't know. So my geography teacher used to say to me, because I always got to school super duper late, because I'm an idiot, giving it up, it was all right. When we did get to Nikki Bella versus Becky Lynch, this was another one when, yes, at one point Nikki went for a springboard kick and she missed by about 42,767 miles. Who cares, man? She didn't mean to do this. She will know that she missed. She's not an idiot. And also, what did Becky Lynch do? She jumped on Nikki Bella to make a cover. To me, that's just some good wrestlers and some good wrestling. You know a mistake has been made, but you kind of work it into the story. Whatever you want to say, I thought it was pretty well cut. Becky Lynch also hit a suplex, went right into the armbar. This is when Nikki applied the fearless lock. Listen, I want to be that guy, which means I'm going to be that guy. This is a little bit like the writers of Poochie coming up with the name Poochie. Everyone going, everyone all right with the name Poochie? The fearless lock is just a silly name for a move. If somebody walked in here right now and said, I'm going to put you in the fearless lock, I'd be like, all right. That doesn't scare me at all. We also got an X Factor on Sim with the Steel Steps as well, and I was a bit like, shouldn't that be a disqualification? But apparently the referees don't care, which should be something that we talk about. Why do our ringside friends always get abused? I mean, early on to get into this, do you know what Nikki Bella did with Becky Lynch's head? She slammed it into Alan. This is the first time you've watched him. He is the announce table. He was just there to do a job, which was to give a nice wooden structure for the commentators. I say shenanigans. Bella also hit the manhandle slam, and I was like, why are you doing all of Becky Lynch's moves? And surprise, surprise, it didn't work. She only got a 1-2-ooh. The WWE always tell us if you do steal maneuvers, it makes you like insulting your opponent. So I guess that's something to do. When she also tried for the arm bar, and of course it didn't work. You ain't Becky Lynch, man. You're Nikki Bella. You should have done the fearless lock. Ultimately, Lynch was so damn mad, she broke out and she pushed Nikki Bella neck first into the ropes. And I think the whole point there was, oh my gosh, she's had neck surgery when she hit the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll up, and she got the 1-2-ooh. I forgot at one point that the Intercontinental title was on the line during this. I don't want to use the word drab because that's way too negative. It kind of felt like it was just there. But I was entertained by it, and again, the crowd absolutely loved everything on that show, that it helped. But I do kind of feel like I need to give it a down if we're just basing things on a curve, because everything Becky did with Lyra Valkyria was excellent. The addition of Bayley was brilliant too. this one didn't feel like a step backwards. Again, I'm going way too far. There was just something missing. That happens sometimes. It's nobody's fault. You can't hit home runs all of the time. And as I always say, if you got a kick out of it, you win, man. You doing better than I. Just giving it a mini down. I'm not a horrible down. I just don't think it's going to last that long in the memory. And yeah, recently, that IC title has been on fire. Blow it out. And I'm going to give another nerd down here, only because I talked about it on SmackDown. But Adam Pearce found Jey Uso, and he was like, do you want to fight Jey Uso? And Jey Uso was like, yes, I want to fight for my cousin Roman Reigns. Why did Charlotte Flair not get this same opportunity on SmackDown? Charlotte must be the first wrestler in about a decade who was told, I'm sorry, you're staying in the back, even though she hobbled out towards the end. So I'm going to give that a down. I don't mind if Charlotte does decline, but somebody should have popped the question. When we did get to our good old-fashioned Donnybook between Sheamus and Rusev, and just to summarise this in a nice little package, it was a street fight. They kicked each other's ass. We had a fake bar set up at ringside, so of course at one point somebody went through it. That looked absolutely horrific. And these fans, because they are the best fans of all time, chanted Rusev Day. And Rusev even sold it. He stuck his fingers in his ears. This gets me excited. Look into my crazy eyes I'm doing right now. I don't care, it's like a decade ago. I want Rusev Day to return. Sheamus at 1.2 went for a flying nothing, and Rusev just cracked him with his kendo stick, which is not the name of my new EP. And yeah, we then got a Uranagi through this fake bar stuff, when Sheamus got out the accolade by just ruining Rusev with chairs. You can tell these dudes are friends, because my gosh, they killed each other in this. But in terms of the series they have up to this point, especially because they got so much noise, I think this was their best match so far. We also got a white noise off some whiskey barrels through a table, which is a sentence nobody's ever said before. We were kind of putting Rusev over pretty big here, because he did get bro kicked right in the face. He kicked out of the 1-2 ooh. Now at this stage, I want you to keep that in your head. Somebody did kick out of a finisher. We're going to talk about it later. Fans really did go nuts for both, and by this point, Rusev had broken the shillelagh, essentially by smacking everybody with it, when he decided, I wonder if I can take this, wedge it into Sheamus' mouth, and apply the accolade, and I tell you, this looked like he was trying to rip his head off. Once again, it was absolutely disgusting, and the Irishman tapped out. Now, fair play to Michael Cole and Wade Barrett on commentary, because they were like, this could only be the second time we recall Sheamus tapping out, as we have mentioned their names. Wade Barrett was brilliant on this show, but it really made Rusev look like a monster and actually gave Sheamus some extra sympathy too, so that was a good finish. Wasn't it nice to not get any stupidity or any distractions, but we have to capitalize on this. Usually after a Sheamus-Rusev match, you're like, where did they go? They don't turn up on Raw. I don't think you have to keep them linked together, but Rusev should absolutely do something, or you should make them a tag team. I know, that sounds lazy, but Raw is in desperate need of duos, and these two just work together. I am going to give it an up. I thought, somewhat ironically, it was a barrel of laughs and a good old Donnybook makes me chuckle because nobody has ever said those words before. When we did get to John Cena versus Logan Paul, and there's a couple of things, I'm doing it again, that I do want to say. First of all, if you are only going to watch one match on this show, you have to watch this for the reaction that John Cena got. I mean, it would change your life in many ways. These people love Big Match John. And also, and I'm totally speculating here, and what do I know? I'm a massive nerd. I think this may be one of the first matches Logan Paul has not worked on the fly, but it was way more of a wrestling match or a John Cena wrestling match than it is his usually spectacular high-flying stuff. And for that reason, I actually thought it was one of Logan Paul's best. Like, I get there could have been more snazzy moves, depending what you're into. But here it was just two dudes having a fight, and you had the old guy that was running out of oxygen, and you had the new guy that probably lacked in experience. I mean, if you were going to give it a stupid star rating, which I hate because they make no sense, you give it like 3 out of 5. But sometimes the best video games are 8 out of 10 video games. If you know, you know. If you don't know, don't worry about it. I mean, that remake of Tomb Raider in 2016. And before we get into the good stuff as well, because I did really enjoy this, although I did think it was a little bit too long, I cannot handle that everybody kicks out of the AA as much as they do, which goes back to that bro kick. Because relatively early on, Cena hit the AA onto Logan. I just went, well, Logan Paul's going to kick out, isn't he? And he did. They did it a second time, and it took 3 to put him away. I mean, you could probably tie this into the crossroads as well. It's just too much for me, to the point I don't even think you could call the AA a finishing move anymore. It's just like a brush-up move, or I'm going to lower your meter move. Somebody has to be hit with that thing, and you just win in the 1, 2, 3. Going to give it a down. I'm a bit worried that Finishers are no longer finishers. And once again, that doesn't make any sense. Otherwise though, John Cena gave Logan Paul loads here, and he did hit a bunch of Splash of the Frogs, which John Cena also kicked out of. And while this was lacking in jeopardy, like I say, it was worked much more like a traditional wrestling match as opposed to I'm going to go to the top rope and do a splash through the table as I hold my phone. Listen, I love that stuff. I think Logan Paul is very talented when it does come to this sports entertainment malarkey. But there was just something about it, and again, it could be because the fans were going absolutely ballistic, but it felt more like a fight. So yeah, you didn't have as much pizzazz, but it had an extra grittiness and an extra edge. Not Adam Copeland, he went to AEW. If we could have just shaved like 8 minutes off this, or maybe 5 minutes, I actually think I would have loved it. The commentators were trying to sell it as, oh, it's the match of the year. It wasn't. It was probably the kick-out-a-thon of the year, but it is good, and there was something to it. Maybe there was just a bit more meat on the bone. All I know is that when John Cena did get his final AA and got the 1, 2, 3, there was just so much love in the air. That poor kid from Belgium was back, who's just been dragged through the coals as he gets emotionally manipulated. But it could be that I know John Cena only has a few matches left, but there was something special about this. And look, if we keep treating Logan Paul this way, and he does get better at this stuff, his ceiling is probably gonna rise and rise and rise. And yeah, Michael Cole mentioned at least 3 times he's a future world champion, and also kept talking about his businesses. I do not care if Logan Paul is a businessman. We do need to stop that, but I am going to give it an up. Once again, it was kind of slap bang right in the middle. John Cena's just the GOAT, and I basically love him. I may even write him a letter. This is when Jackie Redmond made sure to interview Seth Rollins, and he was like, I don't care that I don't have anybody with me, because they always have a plan. And that's when I was like, okay, somebody else is joining the group. Now, I didn't think Becky Lynch. I thought maybe LA Knight would turn heel, which would have made no sense, so thank goodness we didn't do it. And the absolute best bit here is even though Seth was having a meltdown, he still did his catchphrase really angrily. I was like, Seth, I don't want to be that guy. This is probably the one time you could have left it. Otherwise, it was Seth Rollins versus CM Punk versus Jey Uso versus LA Knight for the World Heavyweight Championship. And my highlight of this match was Jey Uso. That's right, because at one point, CM Punk was like, we're going to get some tables. And Jey was like, that's a great idea. And as soon as he saw an opportunity, he booted CM Punk and he booted LA Knight because, of course, Roman Reigns had told him, you need to stand out on your own 2 feet. It just made him feel like a badass and not a stupid babyface. You know my problem with this. When you get 2 good guys or 3 good guys, like, oh, we're going to be the best of friends because we're on the happy side of the team. No, they did all gang up on Seth Rollins at one point, which also made sense. But the world title's at stake, man. Nobody needs buddled when we're talking about gold. Buddies. I meant to say buddies. What's a buddle? Seth Rollins also did a dive during this to put one on the dive counter, and there was at least 3 other dives, so just put it up by 4. And then we did the thing when LA Knight had his turn and CM Punk had his turn by doing the big Tower of Doom, when Jey Uso has his turn. And of course, Seth Rollins had his turn too. There are kids, man. You got to make sure you share the wealth. We also made sure we tied everything into Raw, and this is why I think CM Punk and LA Knight may be properly feuding next, because this time it was LA Knight that bumped off Punk into a table, which broke very funnily, and he just did the shrug emoji, and he hit the BFT, meaning it could be the champion. But of course, Jey Uso broke it up at the 1-2-ooh. He listens to the head of the table. LA Knight then thought he would muck around with some wood as well because he was going to drop an elbow on Seth, but Jey wanted his revenge. So, of course, how did LA Knight get taken out of this match? He took a horrific bump through Alan the announce table, but I actually appreciated this because he wasn't involved in the loss and we had quite literally taken him out to dinner. I mean, not to dinner, that was a lie. I don't know why I said that. So maybe something is brewing for LA. WWE's been pretty good to him. This is when Jey Uso hit the Uso splash, but of course CM Punk was back, so he broke it up the 1, 2, 3. When he started smashing GTSs on people, but Seth Rollins stopped that when he was going to hit him with a stomp. Dun, dun, dun. Well, actually, no, he did get him, but CM Punk kicked out of the 1-2-ooh. Go back to my moaning about finishes. When Seth Rollins got in CM Punk's face and said, I hate you, I hate the fact you have a job, and I hate your family. Which is a very interesting line, given who the reveal was. I'm just going to say the words to you, AJ Lee, and we'll talk about it in about 2 minutes. He then really was going to kill CM Punk with a chair. I mean, he actually had it wrapped around his neck and stuff when CM Punk was able to reverse it into a GTS. And when he was going to go for the second one, to let you know, I watch finishes and understand they don't work anymore, a hooded figure arrived and they whacked LA Knight, not LA Knight, what? They whacked CM Punk right in the groinal region. Seth Rollins had the best old time. He curb stomped CM Punk into the chair. He got the 1, 2, 3. He is still your World Heavyweight Champion. And you already know this, we've talked about it. Who was under the hood? It was none other than Becky Lynch, aka his wife. So this goes back to that tease because sure, it could just be Nikki Bella and CM Punk taking on Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins, but why else mention CM Punk's family? I would imagine, especially because we have WrestlePalooza coming around the corner, which is WWE's first pay-per-view on ESPN, that maybe, just maybe, it could be CM Punk versus AJ Lee. What is going on with me? CM Punk and AJ Lee taking on Becky and Seth, and when you break it all down, as crazy and as over the top as that would be, a lot of people would see it as a dream match. So here's the deal, I'm gonna give this an up because I love the crazy roller coasters these matches taking us on, and I like the fact that while Seth Rollins won and got the pin over Punk, at least we put in some things here which tie into the narrative. But I get it, a few people sent this my way on social media, and I do agree, and I thought at the time anyway, Triple H or WWE, whoever made this decision, has overbooked that, oh my gosh, there's somebody in the ring and they're going to reveal themselves. Like, it's a good finish and I always enjoy it, but I just feel like we're doing it all the time. And it's what the Bloodline did too. I mean, remember the big Solo Sikoa one at Clash of the Castle, and other people have done it as well. I do have to give it a down. This was like the surprise roll-up. We just did one too many, and it's not the end of the world because everybody's talking about it and everybody is pumped, or some people are, that a husband and wife are going to be together. But I can't argue back with you. Once again, if you walked in around and said, well, what do you think about this? I'd be like, you know what, Steve, who's now going to jail because you broke into my hotel room, you make a very good point. Down. Which did indeed bring us to the end of Clash in Paris, and actually, given because when we went in, it felt very much like a B show, thanks to the fans and some of the storylines we did drop, I thought it was a very fun show. Like in the rating of life, I would probably tell you should pick and choose your matches, but I think if you did watch the overall pay-per-view, you likely had an enjoyable time. Listen, I'm gonna give it an up. There was some nerd things that sort of tied to my pet peeves, but as a quote-unquote B show from start to finish, it was a pretty easy watch. Now, of course, please do drop me a comment below and let me know what you thought about Clash in Paris. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe if you would like to hear all my criticisms and positives about Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, I should say. They're on the screen right now. I need to go to bed. I've been up 3 days, okay? Because I want to be a wrestler. I want to be a content creator. So somebody book me and increase my self-worth. I've had a pretty good weekend. I'm just dying on my ass. That's why I'll see you later.